Spartan Nation, Big Ten Nation, and even College Football Nation. What's happening? Ken, the super cool Spartan, my brother Brian, the super mad Spartan, Q, the Woodshed, back at you, live and direct here from the Podcast Nation, Podcast Sports Nation here. MSU's coming back fresh off that bye week, taking on those pesky Cornhuskers in Nebraska. Got a lot of Big Ten talk to discuss. You know, James Franklin once again just can't get it done. Is Oregon the real deal? Ohio State still doing their thing. We're going to chop it up about all of that stuff. All of it. But before we start getting into everything, how was your bye week? Your bye weekend, Mr. Super Mad Spartan?
Bye weekend. Wow.
No MSU this past weekend. kind of free of what we know what it is about the defense. So we had a week away from that. You just watched college football as a straight up college football fan. How this past weekend for you, sir?
You know, it's a weird thing when your team's not playing. I find football a little bit more enjoyable when you can just watch it without having your emotions deeply attached to it.
Right.
You know, because every Michigan State football game, even if I know they're going to win, it's still, pins and needles. You're nervous. You think about all the ups and downs, highs and lows.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie, I missed it, of course, but it's always good to get a little break. And I think the team, after that USC trip, it was a good point for a bye week to kind of regroup. You know, we're in the first third of the season's done. Now we're on to the second third and see where we're going to be at.
Yes, I agree with you. I think this bye week, number one, was at a good point in the season for the Spartans, considering, what we've seen, the large sample size for the month of September. We all know what's going on with MSU with the defense. I mean, they've just been bludgeoned, through the media, from us, all the other talking sports heads, fans, message boards. So hopefully, Joe Rossi was in the lab, really looking at that film, seeing what he can do to improve this defense, especially against Nebraska. And to your point, yeah, it was good to see just the landscape of college football this past weekend. I was down south, unfortunately, for a sad occasion. Shout out to the Honorable Maggie Drake Peterson. She had her funeral, this past weekend here in Alabama. Had to go down for that. But I did get a chance to watch some SEC football. Was in that country, that territory. I sat by my man Uncle Ray. We was watching Alabama versus Georgia.
No, he happy.
And yeah, he's very happy. Very much had, I was just giving him the business, and all of my wife's family who are big Bama fans. Of course, I thought Alabama would win the game. As the game progressed, coming into the game, I thought Georgia would win.
Kirby Smart has a horrible record versus Alabama. He's 1-7 now. Like that's the team just snake bitten versus him. So
yeah, as much as we rag on here in Big Ten country about James Franklin, Kirby Smart, he just can't get it done against Alabama. Doesn't matter who the coach is.
I want to compare him to Franklin. Kirby Smart does have some championships underneath his belt. I would compare it to Ryan Day.
But
Ryan Day, he just can't get over that Michigan hump.
Yeah, and we know some of those wins were credited to Connor Stallions, but we all know that story. Anyway,
I mean, it don't matter no
Yeah.
more. So
But it was good to watch that game. Kind of flipped, between Oregon and Penn State. So it was um it was good to, like you said, get your eyes on what's going on, around the country with Big Ten. Not just Big Ten football, but just college football in general. So we'll just leave it at that. So let's get right into it, broski. Our preview of Michigan State versus Nebraska. Both teams are coming off a bye week. Both teams probably needed their bye weeks. And as we get into round two, chapter two
both
of Big
teams are
Ten
coming off
play.
losses. There you go.
Yeah, they're both teams coming off losses. Indeed. MSU is uh, set to be slacked by Nebraska because Nebraska is favored by 10.5 for all you FanDuel heads out there. So MSU gets no respect, getting no respect. And to top it all off, and I sent you this, Brian, there was a post on Instagram I saw, I believe it was on ESPN, saying that Michigan State is only favored in one out of their remaining games for the entire season. That one game is against UCLA for homecoming. All the other games, they are not favored to win, which means ESPN is predicting that MSU will go 4-8, which would be worse than last year. So I hope that the team uses that as bulletin board material. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be quite the ride, for the rest of the season. But let's just stick with Nebraska. What are your initial thoughts, Mr. Mad Spartan? You got that mad look in your face already. I can tell you just like,
No, just ready to go. Let's just talk about the game. With Nebraska and Michigan State are very similar in their statistics and profile. Raiola and Childs, they're not far off in QBR completion rating. I think Raiola has thrown for more yards than Childs, but these teams both need to get over the hump to
right.
say to say. And Nebraska's coming off losing to Michigan, a game they were favored to win, a game that they could have won. But to be completely honest, Michigan was just a better team. Just watching the game, I don't understand. With Nebraska, they always find themselves in one score games somehow. And I've watched a couple of their games this year, and I'm they're just like a middle of the pack Big Ten team like us, I guess. They're probably to be fair, they're probably a little bit better than us. I think their defense is probably better than ours, even though really enough we have the same amount of sacks. We have 6 sacks on the year, which is not good for both teams.
No. Right.
So
Right.
so we will see. Well, my biggest takeaway in this, I hate to always bang on this every week, but it's going to come down: can Michigan State's defense get stops? Can they affect the game with defense? One of the things I noticed with the Michigan game versus Nebraska, Michigan they have that guy Barnum. He's a beast off the edge, and Nebraska had a hard time protecting Raiola. And part of that, Raiola holds the ball for a long time. I mean,
Uh-huh.
people talk about Childs. Raiola sits back there and Petey passed the ball around. Like, okay, I think they had like 7, 8 sacks on them. I would say the majority of them was him just kind of holding the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it'll come down. If Michigan State's going to win this game, the defense is going to have to do something, and offense is going to have to show up like they've been showing up. And that's very simplistic, X's and O's behind it, but that's just what it is. And I don't think Michigan State they haven't played in a road environment like they're going to face versus Nebraska. Shout out to USC. There's at that stadium. They have a decent enough home crowd. It's not Nebraska. This is their professional team. That's what they have there. So that stadium is
Right.
going to be rocking because
Right.
just like us, they need a win. They
Right.
need it. So that's my
Yeah,
initial thoughts. You have
yeah,
a uphill battle.
yeah. I agree with you. I think that MSU is going to be in a battle, and just don't know. Everything is a question mark. And it goes back to our preview show, I think, that coming into this season is there's a bunch of question marks. And now, we're a quarter way in and the question marks just get bigger. And everything is on the defense. I mean, we beat up the defense enough. We're
Yeah,
going to continue to beat up on them because that's the weak link. I mean, that is the weak
I would
link.
I would disagree in saying that with the unknowns. I think we know we have with our defense. It's not good. You know, with 4 games in, usually 4 games in, that's kind of who we are.
Right.
And in 4 games, there's only been one good defensive performance, and that was versus Western Michigan. And since then, the defense has pretty much been giving it up, even to a FCS school, Youngstown State. And they move the ball, put points on us. Every team outside of Western Michigan has moved the ball and put points on the defense. And I understand this is still kind of a rebuild, and we're in year two. But I'm like, man, we're going on like year five of seeing the same porous defense, just scared football. Just hey, let's just
Hmm.
back up and not hope they don't beat us over the top of big plays. Like it's just a scared brand of football. And then to the point about bagging on defenses, here we go. What is the coaching staff doing? Why are we 4 games in still having miscommunications? People don't know what they're doing. Guys on defense, one guy's running one defense, other guy's running a different defense. Okay, we're 4 games in. You guys in practice, you had the camps, you going through the installs, and we're still making the same mistakes. And my only hope, and it's just hope, last season after the bye week, Michigan State played their best game versus Iowa. They came out and looked like a different team. Most of that was on offense because last year I think the defense was relatively solid-ish,
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they
solid-ish,
were.
not good, not great, just like slightly below average, but not so terrible that you couldn't win. And I feel like the defense has regressed, honestly. But yeah, that's my only hope. We come out the bye week, they've tightened some screws, they've gotten things together. I, hoping, just hoping for defense. And then they go to the other side. We have Aiden Childs, and I think he's obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. And so he's going to have to carry us. The offense is going to have to carry this team, and just hope the defense can get get stops here and there. I don't know. That's why I say 10.5 doesn't seem crazy to me. We're on the road, and Michigan State shown their ass all year on the road. I mean, not all year, but they have defense. So I don't know.
I think that 10.5 is a little extreme because, to your point, Nebraska and Michigan State are kind of similar teams. So I think 10.5 is a little high. Now, if it was like 7 points, maybe 8, okay, I can see that. But I don't think, and I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I also see Nebraska being 10.5 points better than us. But like I said, with the way things have been going right now, I understand what Vegas is saying. I understand what ESPN is saying that we're not favored only one game for the remaining of the season. I get it. So we'll just have to, roll the dice, see what happens. I do think that on the offensive side, that I think MSU can get it done, with Childs and the receivers. and the tight ends. I do think we'll be able to put up some points. So that's my hope that we can do that, and even if it's just 1 point better than Nebraska, that we get this victory.
And see,
And
there's
one of
as
the,
usual, I can give you a pathway to victory and a pathway to losing. Pathway to victory, Nebraska has sort of struggled versus the run. And it's hard to say with Nebraska because the Michigan game, basically they gave up three long touchdown runs, and that was the game. Now,
yeah,
is that indicative of their defense overall? Who knows? State's offensive line run blocking has been okay, but can we continue to be okay and get some big plays in the running game and take a little pressure off Aiden Child because he shouldn't have to carry the whole team by himself in every single game. That's just unsustainable. So if we're able
agreed.
to keep, you know, hit all the cliches, limit turnovers, run the ball, score, create turnovers, or get some timely stops and allow Nebraska to Nebraska, we could find ourselves in a one score game and they could what they do and we could steal one. But on the other hand, Raiola's not a bum. He's a 5-star quarterback. He hasn't shown he hasn't played his best game yet. But when you're going against our defense, it might be what you need. He's not gonna,
Yeah.
to date, we don't have much pass rush. So maybe he could hold the ball for 10 seconds and do his best Patty Mahomes, impression. And we'll those plays and it really hurt us. And
Oh,
that's
that meme you
and that's
sent me, by the way,
responsibility.
was funny.
It's-
That meme you sent me on
yeah,
Instagram, that was, yeah, that was
what you pay
great.
for, what you get. But and I think the point spread reflects that line of thinking. What's more likely? There we go. Michigan State's defense stepping up and stopping an okay offense like Nebraska. They haven't stopped a bad offense really this year. And so we're kind of that's what I think is where the point spread comes in at. In my heart, I'm like, no, it's too high. But in my head, it's like, well, based on what you've seen, I don't think that's crazy. On the road versus a team coming off a bye week who lost a tough game at home, who on paper is more talented than you. Yeah. Now, again, uh, Jonathan Smith is paid to win these games. So we'll see after bye week what we have.
So let me ask you this question, Broski. How many games does Coach Smith need to win to get a third season before Jay Bat pulls the plug and says, you know what? I'm going to find me a better coach, pay him $11 million
We
a
are.
year. I'm a gun for Dabo Sweeney when he gets fired from Clemson.
Oh, double fuck that. Um, no, Jonathan Smith is going to get 30 regardless. I don't think we're not at that point yet to be discussing should he be gone, should he be on the hot seat. Now the hot seat will come if we don't make a bowl and we do go that 4-8 or 3-9.
What
Then the apathy will set
ESPN
in,
predict?
and yeah, if that prediction comes true, then he'll definitely be on the hot seat. In year 3, and that stadium's going to be a ghost town until they do something. Now, I will say, if they does go down that route, someone ahead is going to have to be offered, and I would imagine it will be the defensive coordinator
Rossi.
Rossi. So, yeah, but he'll get a third year, and again, we're far away from that, and I think he gets a third year regardless. Michigan State is down bad, and I think 3 years is enough time to definitively say, hey, we're moving forward. We're not. As much as we want to bag on this season, there's been progress. Progress has been made, right? We've seen the Aiden Child, we've seen the offense take a step. The offensive line is better, receivers are better, running backs better. Their penalties have gone down. Special team has been great. You know, we had a unknown at the place kicker, and if hey, place kicker looks pretty good. Punting's been great. So a lot of it, rides on is can they fix the defense? And that's why they paid the big bucks, and they need to get some guys. And I think,
Yeah,
we, beat that drum enough a lot about the defense, but, we have some solid players and then we have some unknowns. We don't have any known difference makers at this point. Hopefully some will emerge this year. There's still time left. Like I said, we in the hope stage, but definitely, he definitely going to get 3 years unless it completely falls off the rails.
got it, got it, got it. All right, so we've talked about MSU enough. Let's get into this Big Ten talk because we had a lot of action this past weekend. A lot of action. And of course, the big game was Oregon and Penn State. And of course, I was talking to some of my Penn State buddies. They're very disappointed in James Franklin once again. Just improving, getting more, adding another loss in that top 10 column versus the wins. And, your boy Drew,
Oof,
what's his name? Drew Aller?
man. And I'll say this, maybe I'm slightly a James Franklin apologist, slightly. But
A little bit, a
I don't
little
think
bit.
he I don't think he called I don't think it was a bad game in terms of coaching. They came back, they tied the game and got to overtime, and then Drew Allard called like he did. He
Drew
choked
Allard,
again.
Drew Allard,
Yeah, he just inexplicably throws the interception. Like he'll have a solid game, and then he'll make that one play. Like, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
egregious
You know
mistake.
what? Kind of reminds me of Tony Romo or Kirk Cousins.
Dak Prescott.
No, Dak Prescott's not. He don't think he isn't. He's in that. I don't think he has that choker's label on him. But just saying, like for Tony Romo and Kirk Cousins,
You
for
said
instance,
Kirk Cousins.
they're really good. They're really good. They'll lead the team, the game, and it just seems like inexplicably when you need them to make that play, make that moment, they don't, or they throw an interception.
Yeah, the crucial
And
moments.
that looks like Drew Aller. This is at least the third game I've seen where he's giving it up. Like, all right, we need to go down, drive, make this play, do this, do that, and he just has that one play at that time. Now, sometimes he can make that same mistake earlier in the game, and I'm like, okay, you got to just. But it's always at the moment of the most impactful.
Yeah. That
So yeah,
yeah,
and
that's
State can't get
true.
over the hump.
That's true.
They can't get over the hump. But I would love to be where Penn State's at. At least we're fighting and clawing. Like they don't get blown out in these games, but they show up in that's how down bad we are, I guess. But yeah, James Franklin, Penn State gave it up. But we're gonna talk about the losers. We're gonna talk about the winners. Dante Moore. I think that was his introduction to the college football world. He's there. He's him. He played a great game.
From what I read, most definitely. In that environment, the whiteout, 100,000 plus at night on the road, coming from the West Coast. Oh yeah, he's arrived. He's
And
arrived.
Oregon, we talked
He's
about Oregon
making
all year. Is looking at that team that no one's kind of talking about. I think, all right, well, everybody anointed Penn State as this is their year. This is their year, and we've been kind of saying like, yo, Ohio State's there. What everybody knows about Ohio State. No one's talking about Oregon like this, like they're top liver. And Oregon came out and said, hey guys, remember last year we the Big Ten, we were the reigning Big Ten champs. If you didn't know it,
right. Yeah. Yeah, they're looking good. Yeah, Dante Moore is making Dan Lanning look pretty good right now.
it's a good way
And
to
I
put
don't
it.
know if I don't know the rest of Oregon's schedule, but I don't believe they play like Ohio State. Well, no, they don't because they played them last year, unless they play them in the Big Ten championship game. But I think for the rest of the way for Oregon, it's pretty much smooth sailing. I think them playing Penn State was the cream of the crop for them, and now that they have beaten them, I don't think they really have any other team that would challenge them for the rest of the way. We have to look at their schedule to see, but
I'm looking at it
from what I
right now.
recall, yeah,
All right, they have to play. Well, they have a bye week. Then they play Indiana, so that could be a game. There's
they play
Indiana,
Indiana
Rutgers,
next
Wisconsin,
week.
the 11th. So after this, so 1 week after
Okay,
this,
is it at Indiana or is it at home?
it's at home. So, but
Hmm.
Indiana's ranked number 8, and we'll see. Indiana's on a mission. I said it goes Indiana, Rutgers, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, USC at Washington. So
Oh hell,
they could they could possibly
they
run the
gonna run
table.
through that.
Now it's at Iowa, so we always have to say at Iowa can be tricky because even this past
Yeah,
weekend, Iowa put up a good fight versus Indiana, and then they have USC at home. USC offense can pose problems, but their defense kind of gives it up. So we'll see. Then at Washington, that could be a tricky game because Washington, they fought with Ohio State. They sparred tough with them for a little while until Ohio State put them down. But to your point, it would not surprise me if Oregon runs the table.
so we're talking about potentially an undefeated season for the Ducks.
Yes, repeat Big Ten
Yeah,
champions, very possible. So
yeah. Hey, I like Oregon. I mean, despite they beat the hell out of us last year, but just as a Big Ten fan from afar, yeah, I got respect for Oregon. And like you said, they're just laying in the weeds, doing their thing, and they. By the way, what is Oregon rank? I didn't get a chance to check the rankings this past weekend. They gotta be what, top three?
they're currently ranked number 2.
Oh, behind Ohio State.
Let me just check that. Yeah, I believe it was Ohio State. Let me just bring it up one more time.
I think Ohio State's been ranked number one since they
OSU
beat
was,
Texas.
yep, they're still ranked number 1. And speaking about Ohio State, might as well talk about them briefly. They handled business versus Washington. It was tight for a little bit. Washington put up a fight. The
Mm-hmm.
score ended up being 24-6. They hung around with them. But looking at
Okay.
uh Ohio State, they have a little bit tougher road than Oregon, because they play this
I'm gonna
weekend.
play Penn State, right?
They play them later on this year. Okay, so their schedule goes Minnesota, at Illinois. Illinois is not terrible.
No, they're not.
Wisconsin, Penn State, Penn State, okay. Purdue, UCLA, Rutgers, and then of course the end of the season at
The sign
Michigan.
Steelers.
Sign
the,
Steelers, yes.
the sign Steelers.
Yeah, so it's possible for them to run the table, but they have a little bit tougher road, I would say, than Oregon.
Oregon. Yeah.
But
Listen to
again,
that. Yeah, I agree.
Oregon or Ohio State, if they two losses, they're both still going to the playoffs. So it's neither
Oh
here nor
yeah,
there. It's
yeah,
just all
without
right. Who's
question.
gonna? Because if we might end up seeing Ohio State versus Oregon in the Big Ten championship. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, right now it's appearing to be on that collision course. But okay. And I saw Indiana. They pulled it out at Iowa. I think that's the first time they won in Iowa, like after like 6 tries. I think I saw that in the ESPN sports ticker. And
That
I
was a
was thinking
battle.
about this. Yeah, I was thinking about this when on the way home from down south. Is that Indiana reminds me of MSU back in the D'Antonio era, from a standpoint of when D'Antonio first came to Michigan State. He instilled that toughness and all the other things that led us to the best decade of MSU football. And Indiana's kind of on that trajectory to me. I'm not saying they're going to be like that, but it looks like early on right now they're kind of peaking or creeping to that level, because when they got Kirk Signetti, and he already went to, we know what he did last year, and we know what he's doing so far this year. Um, it's kind of reminds me of that. And again, it's still yet to be determined because this is only his second year. So we, don't know what's going to happen in the future, but just in the here and now, I would say it kind of reminds me of that, because looking at the schedule back in the day for the Big Ten, you always penciled in a win for playing against Indiana. Back in the old the legends and leaders divisions back in the day. Then uh, when it was the Big Ten East and West, poor Indiana, they got stuck in the East with us, so they had the Michigan State, Michigan, and Ohio State. That was guaranteed 3 losses for Indiana.
Yeah,
But now it's kind of like,
I get your point of reminds you of D'Antonio. I think it's different in that D'Antonio didn't come in year one and flip the program around. And I understand it's different with
true.
the transfer portal and everything. It took
Right,
D'Antonio
and
about
NIL,
four
yeah, and
years. Yeah.
NIL, yeah,
Yeah, but also D'Antonio wasn't coming in just straight dropping bombs on teams from the get-go. So I think that's the biggest difference is that, Signetti seems to be out on like a personal revenge tour, even though he didn't need to get revenge. Just out there just collecting bodies.
smashing, right,
I definitely was, Indiana has definitely raised their profile to the second highest tier in my eyes in the Big Ten. They're on for right now. They're on the same
right.
level
Like I
to me
said, in
as
the
like a
here and
Penn
now,
State. Yeah, like a Penn State. They're
yeah, in
not
the
at the
here and
top upper
now,
echelon because, when they face the real top of the Big Ten, they got put on them. So we
right.
will see, Signetti how he goes in the future. It's just I don't know. and I Signetti puts so much that Signetti hire and what Indiana's doing puts so much more pressure on Jonathan Smith in Michigan State because you're looking over there like, how come those guys go out and do this and do that, and we over here like okay, what? Why? How
Right.
come our defense can't look similar to that? And I know there's reasons. There are reasons and excuses, but it makes it very difficult to be a Michigan State fan and look at Indiana. Like you said, Indiana was down bad for a long time. And maybe it's their peak for the next like 20 or 30 years. But they guy came in, flipped the program around and instantly. In our state, we're told to be patient and we're building slow, even though it's only year two. It A lot is riding on this season for Michigan State. Now take it back to our alma mater. But yeah, Indiana, they looks to be a team.
They're playing the part, and it's not just Michigan State. When you're looking at you know Minnesota, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Rutgers, I mean,
Those
those
are all
fan
middling.
bases probably those fan
I'm sorry. Go
bases
ahead, you
too are
saying?
like, well, damn. The
Yes,
hell?
looking at Indiana, like, hey, how did Indiana get here? Because even
Right.
for
Let's
most
look.
programs, the rebuilds took about 3 years. Illinois, Burt comes in, they're not so hot that first year, yeah, a little bit better second year. That third year, okay, now they're ranked and they're doing some things. And now Illinois, they're solid tier in the Big Ten. Like, hey, it took a step. They're not fodder anymore. So, there it is. So we're hoping the same for Michigan State. Can we show a little something this year and next year be our big year? Praying, hopefully.
Yeah, but yeah. So I wanted to talk about. Wanted to say, yeah, Indiana, they did the thing at Iowa, Illinois. They came alive and beat uh, USC. Who put it on us. So that was a great win for Illinois. I mean, considering how they basically just went toe to toe offensively with the Trojans and ended up beating them. I think it was in overtime. I think in overtime with a field goal, or maybe towards the end of
Nah, it wasn't.
regulation.
They wasn't in the regulation. They pulled it out.
Okay,
USC had it tough. Like, this is an excuse, reasons, whatever. You know, the previous game when when USC played Michigan State, that was the latest game played in the nation. And then in turnaround next week to fly cross country again and had to play the
right.
earliest game in the nation. And it was USC. We definitely made them look better than what they are. They're not bums or anything. They're really good, a decent team. I put them in that second tier. They fought
Hmm.
toe to toe with Illinois. Their defense is a little suspect. They got USC has a bunch of injuries in their defensive backfield, so that doesn't help. But
Oh,
yeah, so
okay.
that travel, all things, all that stuff matters. But it's a good bounce back game for Illinois after they took that butt whooping from the Hoosiers.
Yeah, true that. True that. True that. So checking the Big Ten slate for this coming up week, there's really no high profile games. I mean, there's really nothing. It's basically it's just a bunch of middle tier, low tier games. When you know, I think Ohio State, they play Minnesota
Minnesota.
at Columbus, so they're gonna row the boat. They're gonna roll the boat right off to back in the sunset. I'm sure. PJ Fleck, he's gonna be rowing the Ohio River back to Minnesota, Minneapolis. I'm sure with a loss. Um, and I think Luke Fickle may have one step out the door in Wisconsin because they
Yo,
travel
that's
to
the one to look at.
sign, sign stealing territory against Michigan, who's favored by 16 and a half. So they'll probably just run them off the damn field, run them to death.
Wisconsin is in a bind because I know the fan base is starting to turn on Fickle.
If they haven't
Because I think they have
already,
well,
because this is what
if
this is like year 3 or 4 for him.
he got hired during the pandemic, I believe, or so it at
This is
least
what year
four.
5. Oh, hey,
At 4 or 5,
yeah.
yes. Because remember, he was going to come to Michigan State, and I think he held off until the year after that. So I think he was hired in 21.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's
it's been,
right. That's right.
yeah. So, eh, and I think his contract, how it's set up, that they'd have to owe him a bunch of money if he gets fired. So he might be there for a little while. And that's going to be down bad because Wisconsin has been through some things. A proud program known for the offensive line. He comes in, tries to go air raid. It doesn't work. I think he tries to pivot back, and they're not looking so hot. And they've been losing games that people don't think they should lose. And they have to go to the big house in Michigan. You know, they kind of roll a little bit. They feeling themselves. They went on the road, beat Nebraska. Now you're back at home with a wounded team in Wisconsin.
And they're coming up, and Michigan's
Oof.
coming up a bye week too, I think.
Yeah, so It's not looking good for those
The
fighting
Fighting
Badgers.
Fickles. Yeah, yeah. It's. I knew Wisconsin was in trouble when they lost the way they lost at home against Maryland
Oh yeah,
because
they
Maryland
got
stomped them. I was like,
yeah.
Maryland?
And Maryland's a
Like,
weird
wow.
team to judge because we've seen them in September for many years look like the next coming of a really good Big Ten team just to fall apart.
Yeah,
So we'll see with them too. But yeah, they put it on Wisconsin. That was shocking to me.
yeah, that was. So, yeah. Other than that, I think Rutgers plays Washington. Northwestern
Hey, we can't
plays
don't sleep on Washington
Louisiana
because
Monroe.
their coach Fish, he's known to
Yeah.
turn programs around. So
Oh no,
I
I'm not
watched
sleeping
that
on
Ohio
one of them at all.
I watched that Ohio State game versus Washington. Washington showed up. They
Hmm.
fought tooth and nail and tried to, they didn't get run out the gym. So that program might be something in the next couple of years to keep an eye on it.
Oh yeah, I'm not poo pooing Washington. I was just saying in terms of the matchup.
Oh yeah, but we don't really have a lot of respect for Rutgers. That's just because they've been Butgers for so long. But they've been coming up. We shouldn't talk about them because they've been putting it on us pretty recently. So
Yeah, true. But in terms of the sexiness of the matchups, there's really no overall in the conference. There's really no big matchups like last week. With Oregon, Penn State. There's no that those type of matchup this coming up weekend. So in terms of that, that's what I was meaning.
gotcha.
So, and then for the other, just for the overall college football fan, if you're into the rankings and everything, I think the biggest game this weekend may be Ohio. I'm not Ohio. I'm sorry, Miami and Florida State. Because both teams, I believe, ranked. Yeah, both teams are ranked in the top 10. So that's probably the biggest matchup
If Florida
this
State, if they're
coming
ranked
up
in the top
weekend.
10, they took that L to Syracuse.
I think they're ranked number 8.
I don't want to surprise me, but yeah.
Yeah, I think they're ranked number 8.
No, they're 18. Yeah, you far off from
Oh,
that one.
18?
I told you
Okay, my bad.
I'm pretty. Like I say, I'm like, yeah, they got a Syracuse kind of put it on them. So I was like, I don't think they rank in the top 10 anymore.
Oh,
But yeah, that's
okay.
going to be a big game rivalry for the schools.
Yeah. Yep. So my apologies to those who watch the rankings like that. Florida State is ranked number 18, not number 8. So, yep. And then got UCLA still looking for that first victory. I don't know who they're playing, but
Don't matter. We only gonna talk about them until we
yeah,
playoff.
yeah. So, other than that, good talk with the Big Ten. Hey, we
Yeah,
did
yeah.
it. Showing love across the not only with the conference, but a little bit of top 25 talk. That's how we do it. Q the Woodshed. We're expanding our base. You know, expanding our reach. We could talk college football all day. Oh, one last thing. I'll mention Notre Dame. They put it on Arkansas, so they're 2-2. So I guess their ranking is justified when they were 0-2. Not to me, but they're 500 now. So okay, Auntie Pearlie's happy. Super Mad Spartan, she's very happy.
Okay. Like I don't care about like You always bring up Notre Dame. They care about Notre Dame. They've had their shot. They got the rest of the season. We'll talk about them if they make the playoffs. Other than that, goodbye.
Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. All right, let's get into our final topic here, the good old MSU fun football fact. See, after you pretty much have been on a little winning streak here, Brian. I mean, I think you
We just got the
hit
last
like the
one. Yeah,
last maybe two at least, two or three.
I try.
So hopefully this one will get you stumped, make you think a little bit. So this week's question is, how many times has MSU led the Big Ten in passing yards? How many times has MSU led the Big Ten in passing yards? Is it 5, 9, or 12?
5.
Are you sure that's your final answer?
I don't remember. Yeah, 5. I'm gonna go with 5, the lowest one.
Actually, you got it right. Ding, ding, ding. Wow, you on a roll. You on a roll
I mean,
there,
State's never been
broski.
known as a passing like that's never been no identity. When Michigan State's ever been good, it wasn't because we were passing. It's because we were running the football and showing, all the other cliches. But yes,
Yes, MSU has led the Big Ten in passing yards 5 times. The most recent time was Kirk Cousins. This was back in, I think, 2011, according to good old Google. He led the Big Ten in passing, and I think it was like 2011. I was like, wow, like we were throwing the ball around like that back in his heyday.
probably because we had to. Well, we not really. It was a really good year. 2011. I think that's the Big Ten championship. We lost to Wisconsin,
Wisconsin,
the
yeah, I think that
inaugural
was the
inaugural Big Ten
yeah,
championship game.
yeah. I was actually at that game too because that was during my birthday weekend. So it was good. I mean, other than
Painful
seeing them
memories.
lose, that sucked. That sucked, but yeah, that was a good experience, and I believe that's when what's his name was still Russell Wilson. I think was with Wisconsin that year. I think he played his last year of eligibility with the Badgers. So
Yeah,
yeah, 5 times. So MSU has had somewhat of a prolific passing game, at least 5 times in their illustrious football history. So good job, Brian. You're on a winning streak. Maybe they'll rub off into the football team. Winning streak.
not transitive property. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. That's the fate. They me getting the question right. If that was all it take, well, we'd be damn near undefeated. But nah.
Yeah, buddy. Rolling like a big shot. Speaking of which, that's what we are here. We're Big Shots here at Q the Woodshed. Check us out on our social media. Please follow us. Hit that subscribe button. We love to interact with our subscribers and fans, and I love all the comments we're getting on TikTok and Instagram, Facebook. So keep it up. We're here for, the listening pleasure here of the Spartan Nation fans and Big Ten fans, sprinkling a little college football top 25 talk. Cue the Woodshed, the official voice of MSU sports fandom. That's what we do here in these podcast streets. So, having said that, I'm Ken, the super cool Spartan. My brother Brian, the super mad Spartan. Cue the Woodshed, and we out. Go green.
Go white.